Have you ever stopped to think about how a state, actually manages its money? It's kind of like running a household budget, but just on a massive scale. We're talking billions of dollars for everything from new highways to local schools. But how can we tell if a state is financially fit or if it's maybe heading for trouble? Well, that's what we're going to dig into today. We're going to break down the official playbook for a state's fiscal health using insights straight from NITI Aayog's latest reports. So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get a handle on the sheer scale of the financial challenge. Then, we'll unpack the toolkit that experts use to measure a state's fiscal health. After that, we'll look at who's actually getting it right and what we can learn from them. And from there, we'll build an actionable playbook for improvement. And finally, we'll connect all the dots and talk about why any of this really matters to you. All right, let's dive in. To really get a grip on the challenges that individual states are facing, we kind of have to zoom out first and look at the bigger picture. So let's start with the global financial scene before we zero in on what's happening right here in India. $102 trillion. Just let that number sink in. That's the mind-boggling total for global public debt in 2024. It puts this immense pressure on governments everywhere. And get this, while developing countries hold less than a third of this total debt, their debt is piling up nearly twice as fast as in more advanced economies. So that's the tough environment we're operating in. And that brings us right back home. You see, here in India, our states account for almost a third of the entire government's debt. That's a huge piece of the pie. This heat map shows the fiscal health of major states, and man, the difference is night and day. The green areas are doing pretty well, but those red and orange spots, well, they're facing some serious headwinds. So how do we figure out what's going right and, what's going wrong? That's where NITI Aayog's Fiscal Health Index comes in. Don't think of it as some dry, dusty report. It's more like an essential diagnostic tool, a financial checkup for states. This whole framework is built on these 5 key pillars. You could think of them as the 5 vital signs of a state's economic health. When you look at them all together, they give you a really clear picture of its financial well-being. So let's quickly break down what each one of these is all about. First up, quality of expenditure. Now, this isn't just about how much a state is spending, it's about how it's spending it. Is that money going into things that will generate long-term growth, like new infrastructure and better schools? Or is it mostly getting eaten up by fixed costs like salaries and pensions? Big difference. Next vital sign, revenue mobilization. This is all about a state's ability to stand on its own 2 feet, financially speaking. How good is it at generating its own cash flow from things like taxes? The better it is at this, the less it needs to depend on borrowing money or getting handouts from the central government. Then you've got fiscal prudence. This one's pretty simple, actually. It's just financial discipline. Is the state living within its means? Is it managing its budget responsibly? This pillar is what keeps track of that. And finally, we have the debt index and its sustainability. This is really about the long game. It looks at how much debt a state has piled up compared to the size of its economy. And then it asks the most important question of all. Can it actually handle that debt without mortgaging its future? Okay, so we've got the diagnostic tools down. Now let's see how they work in the real world. We're going to take a look at the states that are actually applying these principles really well and are, frankly, leading the pack. And here they are, the leaders in fiscal health. Would you look at that? Odisha is the clear front runner here, earning the top achiever status. So the big question is, why? What is Odisha doing that puts it so far ahead of everyone else? Well, the report tells us exactly why. Prudent fiscal management, hey, that's fiscal prudence. Stable revenues, that's revenue mobilization. Effective deficit control, that's solid debt management. You see, they're excelling across the exact same pillars we just went through. It's not magic. It's just good management. Let's make this crystal clear with a little side-by-side. On the left, you have an achiever, like Odisha, moderate debt, tiny deficits, and a fantastic score on the debt index. And on the right, an aspirational state like Punjab, which is struggling with high debt and has more than half of its revenue already spoken for before it even comes in. The gap in performance is just, wow, it's stark. So, we've seen the problem, we have the tools to diagnose it, and we've learned from the states that are at the top of their game. Now, let's take all of that and distill it into an actionable playbook that literally any state could follow. This right here is the core strategy laid out in the report. It's basically a 2-pronged attack. Boost your income and control your spending. That means getting better at collecting taxes, but also reining in those fixed costs and making sure subsidies are actually going to the right people.
Really, it's just about earning more and spending a whole lot smarter.
And this revenue map really drives that first point home. The differences are so clear. Some states are brilliant in generating their own revenue, while others have a massive opportunity to get better. Nailing this part of the playbook is absolutely fundamental to getting fiscally fit. Okay, let's bring this all home. Let's talk about what this actually means for everyday citizens. Because these numbers and these heat maps, they aren't just abstract ideas floating around in a report. So here's the bottom line. A fiscally healthy state is a state that can actually invest in its people. Simple as that. It has the money to build better schools for your kids, pave smoother roads for your commute, and provide modern hospitals and critical infrastructure. Good financial management is the bedrock for all the public services that make our daily lives better. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. Now that you have the playbook, you know the 5 pillars, you know the key strategies, you can start to see where your own state stacks up. How fiscally fit is it? And what steps does it need to be taking? It's a question that's definitely worth pondering.